Hi everyone, I hope you're well. It's been a while since I've created my last YouTube video. As you can probably read from the title, I'm creating this video on how to pass an interview for an airline assessment as a pilot. So in this video we'll be going through the different styles and techniques, some of the questions that may come up, and how to use the STAR technique to answer some of the potential questions. So there's probably a lot of you out there who have recently finished flight training and you're applying to the airlines and you've got your interview coming up soon. You're probably quite nervous, and honestly that's normal, but don't worry, there's nothing for you to be scared about. I'm going to try my absolute best to try and help you and talk to you about the things that helped me pass the interview assessment. So the most important thing that you should do is you should prepare well for your interview. Make sure you do your homework on the airline. Make sure you read up on, for example, their fleet size, sustainability, the different routes that they take, the challenges that they're currently facing now, future challenges, and have a good financial understanding of the company itself. By doing all this, when you rock up to the interview, you're going to feel more confident. So when it comes to the interview preparation, it's important that you practice in advance. For example, you can make flashcards with your answers on it, you can practice in front of a mirror, you can get a family friend to help you out. But don't practice so much that it sounds rehearsed and memorized, as the interview will feel that as if you're reading from a script. However, you don't want it to be the first time that you're giving the interviewer the answers. When you give your answers, just make sure that it's free-flowing and that it sounds natural. So let's talk about the interview itself. The interview could be face-to-face or even online, and it will usually last about an hour, but it could be more, it could be less. It really depends on how long your answers are, whether or not you've answered the question properly, if the interviewer is asking any probing questions. Now, the interviewer themselves could be a captain, a senior first officer, or even a cabin crew manager, but don't feel intimidated by them. Most likely, they're going to try and make you feel at ease, they're going to make you feel welcome and relaxed, and honestly, it's just a conversation about a job you've always wanted. They want to recruit someone who that they think that they can train. Now, most of the airliners, they're not there to employ a first or second officer. They're trying to recruit and employ someone who can potentially go on to be a future captain. Now, they're looking for certain traits and qualities. Now, if the interviewer is a pilot, they're looking to see if that they can employ a future colleague. They're looking to see if that they can sit next to you in the cockpit for long durations of time. They don't want someone socially awkward. They want someone who's friendly, likable, honest, professional, but always keeps safety at the heart. So usually the interview is split up into two parts. You've got the motivational questions, and then you've got the competency-based questions. So for the motivational questions, they want to see what you know about the airline, why you want to work for them, what you can bring to the company, and why you think you'll be a great fit. So let's go through some of the questions that may come up. So the first question you're most likely going to get asked is, tell me about yourself. Now, this is an icebreaker question for the interviewer to get to know you a little bit better. Maybe start off your answer by saying, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Then go on to talk about your previous school life, where you've previously worked, if you've had any aviation experience, if you were former cabin crew, if you've worked at the airport, or whether it was something like air cadets or having a trial flight which motivated you into becoming a pilot. Talk about flight training, talk about where you completed flight training, how long ago you finished. Maybe then just round it off by just saying that you believe that you have the right qualities and traits to hopefully develop into a competent pilot at their airline. Honestly, there's no right and wrong. It's about selling yourself and speaking about yourself to the interviewer. So the next question you can get asked is, why do you want to work for us? And I think this is a very important question, and you need to word it in the right way. You need to really show your passion and desire why you want to work for that specific airliner. You can talk about how it's a no-brainer for you wanting to join that airline. They're a great employer, you've got a great track record, and you've spoken to current pilots at that airline, and they've said that the training is second to none. You really like how the airline value their staff, how it encourages inclusivity, individuality, even diversity. And for example, me being a British Bangladeshi myself, I think this is why I'd be a great fit for your company. Talk about how they're actively tackling climate change and how they maybe, if they are doing that, how they're making a positive difference and how this sits close to your heart. Talk about if they're doing charity work, how this resonates with you. It's important that you can also talk about how they offer great career progression, and that one day you have aspirations to be a future captain, and it's realistic and reasonable compared to other airlines. Tell them how you're really excited by their future plans, and this is all the different factors why you think why you really want to join their airline. And I think I've obviously had a lot of feedback from a lot of people. A lot of people have actually failed this answer because they haven't really talked about the motivational side and why they want to work. So once again, I emphasize on this point, make sure you talk about them and you've done your research and your homework into them. So the next question you get asked is, tell us about our strategy. Now, this question, once again, you have to make sure you've done your homework, make sure that you've researched everything. Obviously, different airlines have different strategies. Maybe you can talk about how they're prioritising on primary or secondary slot constrained airports around the world. You can talk about how there's huge passenger demand and that maybe those airlines are focusing on key cities where there is high passenger demand, but also how they're trying to connect the whole world globally. For example, Emirates have destinations all around the world, but when you have something such as EasyJet and Ryanair, they're really looking to have a good, strong network in Europe. Maybe talk about how they're trying to replace old fleet and bring new aircrafts, and by doing this they're more fuel efficient, they produce less noise pollution. Say how it's enjoyable, affordable, and how they offer great customer service, and by doing all this they'll be winning it for the people, for the shareholders, as well as for the passengers. So another question you may get asked is, what future challenges may you expect in your training and your career? So far you've done everything single pilot ops, but now you need to remember you're going to be working as multi-crew. There's going to be someone next to you. It's important that you can respect the boundaries of multi-crew and you're not always pressing something, for example, by yourself, and then you've got someone to help and assist you in times of difficulty. You need to also remember type rating. Type rating is going to be a huge jump. There's so much to learn, so much to do. But obviously, APS MCC is giving you an insight of what to expect. And through the help of you guys, because your training captains are so good and a bit of dedication from my side, I think we'll get through this. Talk about fatigue. And you can say how you've only flown maximum 2 to 3 hours during flight training. Now you'll be doing 4-sector days, which could last up to 12 hours, for example, and that this is going to be very tiring. It's important that you can balance your work life as well as your social life together. And this is probably the first time you're having to think on a commercial understanding. So far, you just kind of got along and you did your flight training. Now you need to think how you can help the company in a financial way. And remember that people, for example, your co-pilot, your captains, they're going to be from all different backgrounds and ethnicities and races. It's important how you establish yourself and how you communicate with yourself with them in a positive way, as you will be with them for long periods of time. Another question you can get asked is, what qualities make a good pilot/first officer? So it's really important to have clear communication. Try and be short, accurate, precise, and direct to the point. Don't actually waffle. 80% of accidents, incidents that happen in the aviation industry is due to poor communication. So I think that's really important. It's really important to also have good situational awareness. Try and be ahead of the aircraft and try and understand what's happening around you rather than the aircraft being ahead of you. It's important that you have good customer service, give good PAs, be friendly, outgoing. This all starts before actually boarding the cockpit door, in the departure lounge, engaging with passengers, being friendly with youngsters, maybe letting them take pictures in the cockpit once your workload has decreased or once you're free. It's really imperative to have good time workload management. Try and decrease your workload so you can increase your capacity and be able to do other things. It's also important that you're able to prioritize depending on the importance of a situation. Another point is, it's really important to have good leadership skills. You need to know when to lead from the front, but also take a step back and let others lead. It's important that you can also take decisive decisions in this time. But number one is actually safety. Safety is paramount. Safety is the top priority. Make sure that you follow SOPs, that you know it diligently, that you're technically proficient. But also just, apart from all this, try and be calm. You don't want to have someone who's really always worried, anxious. You want someone who's relaxed, chilled, and can take the pressure off you. So I think these are some of the qualities that a good pilot/first officer should have. Another question you get asked is, what future challenges can the company expect? So I think since COVID has happened, there's actually been a pilot shortage. So a lot of captains have actually retired early and a lot of first officers took their space. So there's been a pilot shortage, and it actually takes time to train pilots. It doesn't happen overnight. Same thing with cabin crew, there's high demand. Another problem that's a bit different is after the war with Ukraine and Russia, fuel prices have obviously gone up. This has affected the business a lot. It's affecting shareholders, they're not making as much profit. When it comes to also Europe, Europe's got a very congested airspace. There's less slots available in general. Over the next couple of months, in July or September, ATC are striking and less aircraft are being able to operate due to these reasons. Inflation as well. Cost of living expenses have gone up. Living costs, have gone up, and people are flying less. Interest rates are spiking. But this also means, as some airlines, they don't own all their aircraft. Interest rates are going up, and for that, they're having to pay more. I know in Gatwick, over the next 3 months, I believe, EasyJet have cancelled 1,700 flights. This is going to affect passengers enormously, and shareholders will make less profit. Another question is, how can you as a pilot help the company financially and in a non-technical way? So you can fly the plane more efficiently, take less extra fuel than needed, try and do single engine taxi, be on time so you don't miss your slot times, try and do CDA, so continuous descent approaches when possible, request direct routing. If you're an Airbus, try and request a flap 3 landing. These are things how I can help the company financially with my piloting actions. But when it comes to non-technical way, it's important that you give good PAs so that passengers feel like safe and assured, and all of this will drive a repetitive business. But also during a delay, don't like hide in the cockpit. Come out the cockpit door, speak to them on the main PA intercom so that passengers feel assured, so it's reassuring and it feels personal. But also have good uniform standards. Like if you're looking scruffy and you're in the departure lounge, passengers are going to be like, oh, I don't really want to fly for them, who do they work for? But if you're looking quite smart, got good uniform standards, they'll be like, oh, who do they fly for? Yeah, they look like a really good professional company. As I've already mentioned before, try and give young children importance. They're the next generation of passengers that will be flying. So if you create a good image right now, it will lead quite far and they'll come back to you and it'll drive for repetitive business. So another question you get asked is, what sets our company apart from different airliners? So I'm going to go through different airliners in Europe. So let's start with EasyJet, for example. EasyJet, they're a low-cost airliner who fly predominantly to primary slot-constrained airports in Europe. Then you've got your Ryanair and Wizz Air, and now they're your ultra-low-cost airliner who fly predominantly to secondary airports, but they have lower baggage allowances, and they fly at more random times in the day. British Airways, on the other hand, they offer a more premium service, but at a more higher price, and they only kind of fly out of Gatwick and Heathrow, whereas EasyJet, for example, they have more bases located, just like Ryanair, across the whole of Europe. You could talk about how if they are maybe pioneering sustainable air travel in the industry, and that they've got a variety of network, and they're flying everywhere, they've got a good schedule, the aircraft's always clean, they've got a young fleet, price is affordable, and most important thing, they're providing a good service. So next question, what are your main strengths and weaknesses? So I'll start with my weakness. One weakness I have is sometimes I get of tunnel vision. I get carried away doing something. I try to be a perfectionist. However, I've learned that I need to plan and prioritize depending on the importance of a situation. Another weakness I have is that I can't say no to people. My response when people ask for help is always yes, even if I don't have the capacity for extra work. However, now I'm trying to assess my workload before committing to something. When it comes to weaknesses, you don't need to actually list loads of weaknesses. Say a weakness and see if you can have a positive spin. Then when it comes to strengths, yes, so one strength I have that I'm a good communicator. I work well with people. I'm quite friendly and outgoing by nature. But I also work well within a team, and I'm also can work well individually where and when required. I have good situational awareness. I understand what's happening in my surroundings, and I think these are some of the traits and qualities that I can bring by working with you guys. Okay, so that's the end of the motivational based questions. We'll now move on to the competency based questions. So what the interview will now do is they'll ask you some questions like, tell me a time you had to lead when you weren't in charge, or tell me a time you lost situational awareness. And what the interviewer wants to really see is a time when this has happened and how you've actually dealt with it. Now, the best way to answer these questions is by following the STAR technique. So the STAR technique is actually an acronym. So S stands for situation, T stands for task, A stands for action and R stands for result. By following this, you'll keep your answers accurate, direct to the point, and you won't go off on a tangent. What the interview is also looking is to basically see if you have some key competencies that they're looking for. So there are many competencies that the airline industry want from pilots, such as have good leadership qualities, have good problem solving skills, having good customer service, having good situational awareness as well. So when answering these questions, these are some of the things that you may need to include. So one question that may come up is, tell me a time when you've had to lead when you weren't in charge. And the competency they're looking for is leadership. So I'll give you a story of when I've had to step up to a lead role. So while working at Stansted Airport as a passenger reduced mobility agent, I had the opportunity to lead 4 new members of staff. So the situation was, I came into work one day, I noticed there were 4 new members of staff in the crew room. My supervisor was on a phone call, she had to rush off to hospital as their child had hurt themselves. So it was my task to basically take lead, introduce the new colleagues to everyone, establish a good rapport with them, and show them what we do. So my approach was, and my actions were, so I first took them to a boardroom, I formally introduced myself, who I was, how long I'd been working there. I then got to know their names, their backgrounds, if they had any previous experience working at the airport, if they had any concerns or any questions, but also tried to be empathetic with them as I knew it was their first day at work. We then went through safety and security protocols of what happens inside the airport. We then did a role play of how we aid blind passengers and how we help wheelchair passengers into wheelchairs. I thought later on in the day it was a good opportunity for them to kind of take charge and lead from the front, and for me to take a step back, as there was a flight with many passengers that had reduced mobility. So far I'd been leading right from the front, but now I thought it's a good time for me to take a step back and for them to take a bit of control. At the end of the day, we sat down, we evaluated the individual performances, and if they had any concerns. I knew it was their first day at work, and I was in their shoes not so long ago, and I reassured them. In conclusion, I stepped up to a leading role where I had more motivated them, I encouraged them, and I stayed professional at all times. And as a pilot, you may need to lead as a captain, but also remember where to take a step back, where and when required. So this is how you would tackle a question like this. I spoke about the situation, I told them about my task, that I needed to basically step up to a lead role. I told them what my actions were, so I did X, Y, Z, and the result was it was a positive outcome. And as a pilot, there may be times when you have to basically lead, but remember to also take a step back. So that's how you answer a typical question. So another question you can get asked is, tell me a time you've had to deal with a conflict between 2 colleagues. So in this example, what they're really trying to hear is how you dealt with the situation. So maybe you had 2 colleagues that were fighting at work or in flight school. What did you do to try and de-escalate the situation? Maybe your intervention was needed to diffuse the scenario. Maybe you were diplomatic and you had both perspectives. You put yourself in each other's shoes. You didn't take sides, and that's how you tried to help out, and you didn't blame anyone. Maybe in this example you had demonstrated that you had good problem solving skills and leadership skills. Yes, in the cockpit there may be times when there's conflict between you and your co-pilot, but it's really important to remember to handle it in a calm, professional manner. Be professional. There's no reason to raise your voice. Talk about it if you disagree on something. In this scenario, you really should stay calm, professional at all times. Another question you may receive is, tell me a time you've had to challenge a superior or a colleague of yours. Now, in this situation, they're looking to see an example where maybe you were the junior and something happened, something was unlawful or against protocol, and you've had to question your superior. They want to see if you've had how your approach was. Was it a diplomatic approach? Did you handle it in a tactful way? Were you non-confrontational? Maybe there was a scenario where, because there's obviously times in the cockpit where you may have seniority complex, where your captain has 30 years extra training than you and they're more senior than you. Sometimes you may feel scared. But what they want to hear in this example is that regardless of seniority, you're not scared to challenge a colleague of yours, especially if it's safety related. There may be times in the cockpit your captain's gone against SOPs and you need to actually question him in that moment in time. Regardless of how senior it is, you need to be able to challenge in a professional way, and just keep it composed. Don't feel scared. This is what they're really looking for in this question. Another question you may get is, tell me a time when you operated a flight that happened unexpectedly, and how did you deal with it? So in this scenario, you have to give an example where something came out of the blue and which you didn't expect, and what your actions were, what you thought was next. So maybe something completely unexpected happened. How did you maybe build your situational awareness? How did you regain it? Maybe in this example, you try to reduce your workload management if possible. I think in these moments where something unexpected happens, it's really important that you can remain calm and think in a logical method. Maybe you weighed up your options, and these are the options you had. You had this option on one hand, you had the other option on one hand, and after weighing up your options, you thought this option was the better one. There will be times in the cockpit where things will happen completely unexpectedly, and you've got your co-pilot there. Ask for their help. You're a team. You need to remember you're multi-crew. But it's also important as a pilot, always try and anticipate the unexpected, as nothing's going to come knocking on your door when something wrong goes. Another question you can get asked is, how would you handle criticism? So the way I would answer this question is, criticism is an important part of self-development and improvement. It's important that you're able to listen to feedback, determine its value, and then put in a plan of action in place to try and improve in your areas of weakness. This is how I would deal with criticism. Yes, it's not that we're always going to like it, but it's important that you've got a roadmap in order to try and improve in your areas of weakness. Another question you could potentially get asked is, what would you do if you didn't get along with a co-worker? In this situation, I would work hard to build a good relationship with them. I would assess my own actions so I wasn't contributing negatively to the situation. I would try to find a common connection or interest so that we can build on. I would always try and create positive and productive working relationships. Worst case scenario, if you don't match with them at all, try and not be confrontational, always be friendly, but always remain professional, as it's our duty to fly the aircraft safely from A to B. Another question you can get asked is, tell me a time when you've been in a complex situation and how did you deal with it? So in this example, the competency they're looking for is problem solving. They're really trying to see is how you dealt with the situation, what was your thinking process, so how did you maybe potentially weigh up the options? Did you, for example, have to make a critical decision at some point? Maybe you took a very stressful, emotional situation and you handled it in a very calm, professional, humane manner. You could talk about, for example, if you did in the example, maybe you had shown good situational awareness, maybe you had done really good problem solving skills swiftly. It's important as a pilot that you're able to handle complex situations under pressure and be calm and collected. And if need be, ask the help of your co-pilot, because as I previously mentioned already, it's important to remember you're multi-crew and they're there to help you. Another question you could get asked is, tell me a time you spotted a risk and how you dealt to stop it. So in this example, they want to hear a scenario where something's gone wrong and there was a risk that you spotted, and they want to see what your actions were. Maybe you dealt with it in a calm, strategic, swift manner. Maybe you were able to anticipate the unexpected and you could see a risk growing. How did you evaluate it? Obviously, maybe there were pros and cons. Maybe you weighed up the different options. Maybe you ran through a TDODA and you did a threat area management evaluation. Maybe you tried to reduce your workload. I actually got asked a probing question that even though that you spotted a risk, why did you actually continue in this example? So I said that I was able to evaluate it and I knew that regardless of the risk, my training can come into action and I knew what to do next. Another question you get asked is, what happens to you when you're under pressure? So when I'm under pressure, I actually become more effective. I actually really enjoy the challenge. I know the stuff that needs to get done. I actually become more decisive and I'm able to make more clear decisions. Yes, there is a point when pressure increases too much and your workload starts to increase. But it's probably better to be in this scenario being a little bit under pressure than having under no pressure and then I start to get bored. I know that there's pressure, but I actually become more focused and determined and more directional. So the next question you get asked is, what's more important to you, individuality or teamwork? So it's important to work as a team, work in a multi-crew environment. Safety is paramount. You've got a captain, a co-pilot who's there, who's more senior than you, they've got more experience. You can ask for their help when times get difficult. We have to work as a team, work together, flying from A to B in an effective, safe manner. But I also know that I need to play my own individual part. But ultimately, we're a team and we work with it together. Another question that may come up is, tell me a time you've helped a colleague. Now, in this scenario, you can give an example from helping a colleague out during maybe school or university, or even during work. But I think it will be best to talk about something during flight training. I think a great example is maybe during your APS MCC course when you were multi-crew for the first time. Maybe your co-pilot was struggling and you tried to help them out, and you saw that they were really finding some things difficult. Maybe you spoke to them, listened to what they had to say, but you also encouraged them, you supported them, you boosted their morale. It's important to remember that as a pilot, you're working multi-crew, and there will be times when things are difficult. And in your younger junior days, when you don't have experience, to go and ask the help for your captain, as they've got so much more experience. So this is the sort of answer that the interview is looking for. Right, so the last question I've got for competency-based question is, tell me a time you've lost situational awareness and how did you deal with it? Now, in this example, they want to hear what actually made you lose your situational awareness. It's probably best to talk about something flying related. They want to see how you regained your situational awareness. How did you build upon it? Maybe it was through your training. Maybe you ran through maybe a TDODA. You did a threat error management evaluation. Maybe you tried to also reduce your workload so your situational awareness improved. They really want to see your problem solving skills. They want to find out that you're someone who's calm and collective, and even when you've lost situational awareness, you can be able to regain it in a swift, logical manner. Okay, so that is the end of all the questions I plan to go through with you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have got upcoming interviews coming up, I wish you the best of luck. I know you guys will absolutely smash it. Just make sure that you've prepared well, make sure you don't sound rehearsed and memorized. Just be relaxed, chill, take it easy, and you'll be absolutely fine. Once again, thank you so much for watching it. Please like, share and subscribe.